Good morning. Here we are on a beautiful spring morning with the Baraboo buds. I'm Kathy Calabrese and this is my friend Pat Taylor.
Good morning.
And we're here today at the beautiful property belonging to the Johnsons. And this is Glenn and Gail Johnson.
Gail and Glenn, we're really interested in how this beautiful garden got to be. It's so beautiful how you have these large colonies of native plants and you have spring bulbs, and it's just a beautiful look. We just can't wait to see how it all happened.
Well, I think the origin of this is we had such an awful time growing grass under these trees because we live right on sandstone. Just inches below our lawn is sandstone, which made it very difficult. So we gave up and we just started not mowing, and this became a depository for leaves in the fall, and once the soil got rich enough, we started putting in wildflowers, and so now it's turned into our wildflower slash memorial slash mental health garden.
Yeah, so every spring we especially take lots of walks out here daily to see what's come up, and we keep trying to enrich it with as many native plants as we can.
It was when I was working full-time, when I'd get out of my truck, I would sometimes first take a little tour through the garden to see what brand new things came up, and that was a nice transition for me from work to home, and one of my favorite parts of the day. But
Kind of like your glass of brandy.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Much
Right.
better choice.
Yeah. But most of the plants came from either purchasing them from the University Arboretum Spring Wildflower Sale, or they've been transplanted from my mother's gardens in Reedsburg, or we owned some forest land up by River Falls where we've transplanted some of the wildflowers. So.
Yep. And I have to say that we've both always been interested in wildflowers, but we decided that for me, it was always a dream to get married when the trillium were in bloom. And so we were able to make that happen in Michigan. And so we do have a lot of trillium in here. So it's just kind of a special thing. So.
The other thing that I'll mention is that in the third week of April every year, down in the Smoky Mountains, is a wonderful wildflower pilgrimage, and that we've been there at least 2 times, maybe 3 times, and that really lit up our passions. Taught me a lot about ferns, and ferns is a big part of this garden.
Yep. Yep. Glenn is the fern nerd.
When we moved into this lot, by virtue of the fact that we have so many mature trees, deciduous trees, one of the chores in the fall, of course, is trying to figure out what to do with all the leaves. And so this area became kind of an easy place to blow and sweep leaves. And over time, that served to do a nice job of enriching the soil. And so I think that we've been putting wild flowers and plants in here for maybe the last 12 or 15 years. I actually kind of forget how long, but
There's been, over time, we've lost both of Glenn's parents and my mom, and we have, as memorials, they were plant people, and so we have plants from one of Glenn's uncles, and we also are very tuned into our animals, and so we have animals buried here. So it's almost, we consider it a spiritual place for us to walk through, and it's healing, I think. Mm-hmm.
The other way we use this is we have an area here for a little bonfire, and especially when our two children, Bonnie and Ben, were in high school, quite often we'd find them here with their friends, and it was a good place for them to gather around the bonfire. And we still do it, especially to mark some of the changes or the passages of the year, the solstices and the equinoxes and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, we actually sort of have a ritual where we'll, around the new year or the solstice, we'll put a log in, and then we'll put wishes for the new year, or
wrap it with ribbon, decorate it.
yeah.
And then tuck in little tiny wishes
Yeah, so that's always been fun.
and send them to the vapors.
Yeah. It was nice to get rid of the pandemic that way too.
Gail, I'm admiring your beautiful border here. How many varieties of daffodils do you have?
Well, honestly, this border is from Wildflower Farm. They have a collection of daffodils that are called the Works. And so I put those in, and then I've just continued to every fall plant 200 more daffs all, around the gardens. But the one thing that I learned, this was also from Wildflower Farm, they suggested to interplant daylilies with your daffodils, because once the daffodils have gone past, and a lot of these are almost done, then the daylily foliage comes up and covers the daffodils.
Oh, yes.
And that really is a nice look. And we talked earlier about this being sort of a memorial garden. Well, I had a very dear friend who died way too young. She was a middle school teacher, and just an amazing woman, really into the out of doors. And when she passed away, my dad gave me the gift certificate to get the daylilies.
Oh,
so when those flower, I always think of my friend Barb. And so, yeah, I thought that was a really neat trick, because it does really help to cover up that old daffodil foliage. Yep.
And you still have the same kind of like strappy leaf
Yes.
essence to the border, even as
Yes.
it changes to a different kind of plant.
Yep.
So when you're planting those masses at a time, what tricks do you have? Do you have a drill,
I
a
do.
backhoe? What do you
Yes.
use?
I should have gotten that out, but I have this wonderful bulb drill, which is probably about 2 inches,
Okay.
that you can put on an electric drill bit,
Kind of like an auger.
like an auger.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And that really does help when you're, doing a whole bunch
You're
of
right.
daffodils at once. Sometimes I just dig a trench and put them in that way. But that auger is really slick.
wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't do anything special to the daffodil foliage as it dries down, you just let it ripen, and as the others covers it up.
Yep.
That's a nice
Yep.
strategy.
I did try to naturalize the bulbs into the yard, but they didn't ever seem to flower, even though Glenn would avoid mowing around those areas. They didn't ever seem to flourish.
Well, that's part of gardening, is
Yeah.
finding out what works for where you are.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
One really nice effect of your garden, I think, is it's kind of a tapestry, how you have the textures. You have large colonies of different kinds of foliage and different heights of plants and colors of plants. And right next to these strappy leaves, we have these lovely May apples looking a little bit peaked after the frost last night, but it's just a really nice contrast there.
Yeah, I love May apples because they're so much fun when they come up. They look like that umbrella. And you can see, and these have, the flower buds are coming up in between the two sets of leaves. Sometimes the leaves come out in single leaves, but most of the time it's double, and the flower is always right in between. Like, see, these are just single. There's not going to be a flower there, but the double ones, that's where the flower bud is. So pretty soon there's going to be a whole bunch of flowering May apples here.
And behind that you have some wild ginger. You have a heart-shaped flat leaf there. It's just
Yep.
Very,
Yep.
very well planned.
Yep, the ginger's got a little tiny flower that's on the ground. It's a red flower, and from what I understand, that's because there's a beetle that comes to pollinate it, and it's red because it looks like blood, like carrion.
Oh my goodness.
So, and I guess it's wild ginger, but it can be sometimes used as a substitute for spice, although I don't know, how.
Yeah, it's just this. Have you never tasted it?
No.
Oh, yeah, it tastes like ginger. It has that hotness to it.
Does
not,
it?
not a sweetness, but a heat like the.
So the leaf?
No,
Or
the root, the rhizomes that
oh,
grow
sure.
along. I
Yeah.
mean, they're quite thin as compared to,
Yeah,
the
the
herb
ginger
ginger,
root,
but
yeah.
And bloodroot salt. Do you have a colony of bloodroot too? That's always
Yes.
fun when you're
Yeah,
showing
we
that
have
to
some
kids
over
to break
there.
the roots and
Yes,
show them that it
the
really does
the
have
red
blood
dye.
in it.
Yeah. So in this area we have dwarf iris, which aren't in flower yet, but we brought these back from the Smoky Mountains. There was a place that was selling plants there, and they've taken off really nicely. And then here's the wild ginger, and golly, the flowers are so nestled down in.
Oh, yes.
So there's quite a big space there for the beetle to get inside to pollinate it. But they're way down deep inside there.
I see. Oh.
So what are those tall sprouts coming up there?
Oh, this is a type of Solomon seal. This, I think, is actually a domestic one that my sister gave us that's variegated. And that'll get about this tall. It's very pretty.
Here we are surrounded by a profusion of a variety of native plants, and they each have their own little colonies and blend together. Gee, what are the names of some of these plants here?
We have perfoliate bellwort. See how the stem comes right up through the middle of the leaf? That's why they call it perfoliate. And we have twin leaf, and there's lots and lots of trout lily. There's spring beauty. There's scilla in the front that's almost done flowering now.
I see some hepatica. That's one of my favorites.
Yes, that's one of the very first ones to come out.
And is that kind of a rue?
meadow rue?
There's a meadow rue there also that's not flowering yet.
And some charming little Dutchman's britches.
Yeah, Dutchman's britches.
They have such interesting names, don't they?
Yeah, I love that. And there's more
Did you
down
talk
there.
about the bluebells?
Oh yeah, and there's Mertensia or Virginia bluebells there in a cluster. Yep, there's some fiddleheads down here also.
We were talking before about how, right now everything's kind of low to the ground and in clumps, and then soon all these tall plants will start shooting up in different areas, and it'd really change the profile of the garden. It would be really fun to see that time lapsed.
And one thing that's true about spring wildflowers is they use the word ephemeral. And because the trees are without leaves now, there's a lot of sunlight that can get through. And soon, when the leaves come out, then there won't be as much sunlight. So the spring wildflowers come and then they go. And so that's kind of a neat thing about them. They're very special for a short period of time.
Gail, the different colors of green are striking. Do you sometimes choose it for the plant, not maybe for its flower, but for its foliage that lasts?
Well, there's lots of nice contrasts. Some things are really feathered, and like the rue over there has a very, when the wind comes through, it works really nicely. I have to say personally that I am always attracted to flowers, but the leaves are definitely a really nice benefit, and there's definitely a nice contrast with those as well. And we have lots of ferns in here. Oh yeah, and even Some of our ground covers that we have, sweet woodruff, they'll be there all summer long, and so that's a really nice thing. Where the flowers will be temporary, the foliage is a nice thing to have all summer long. Well, we were talking about even the steps, the rock steps in here are sort of a scrapbook of different things that have happened in our family's life. Like we brought some slate back from the Black Hills when our family went to visit on a family vacation. Some of the mosaics are stepping stones that the kids made for me for Mother's Day, which is kind of fun. And then we've got lots more of different plants here as well that we may not have seen so far. There's a couple clusters here called Jacob's Ladder, and the leaves of the Jacob's Ladder, it's real obvious why it has that common name, because the stem has pairs of leaves that go up the branch. And we do have some trillium here that are just about to bloom over here. And there's some clusters in the front there too.
Gail, I'm really impressed with your Virginia bluebells. This is a nice clump, but in the other garden across the drive here, there's a very large drift of them. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, this is a very interesting plant, and it's the only plant that I know of like this that, it likes to seed itself, because we've been in this place, I think, 35 years, and the woman that lived here previously planted them. And so now we have swaths of them all over. But this plant completely disappears. It's, I'm sure there's a scientific name for it. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of unusual in that respect. But yeah, I love it this time of year with the yellow daffodils and the blue pretty mertensia and the gold finch, the bright yellow. There's just so much color this time of year.
There's another one.
Yeah, this one is called hepatica, and this is one of the very earliest spring wildflowers, and there are a couple pretty flowers still on there. This can range in all sorts of different colors, from pinks to blues to whites, and it's probably one of the things I look forward to most in the spring, because it's one of the very first things that flowers.
It's nice that you have this very complex woodland right outside your front door that you made. You know, it's kind of like a custom woods, my custom environment here. It's very lovely.
Oh, and we have one back here as well. This one is called cutleaf toothwort, and the leaves are serrated, and I guess the toothwort comes from the petals look like little teeth. And the name is dentata, and so that they've incorporated the scientific name in the dental part of it too. And here's more of the sweet woodruff ground cover that came from Glenn's mom.
How do you maintain this all summer? It's just because they're mostly native species? There's no weeding because you have the heavy mulch, or is that not true?
We need to weed. We need to do a better job of weeding than we do. But yeah, this garden is really at its prime, for the next month, and then there's not quite as much interest. But we just continue to use it, for campfires and things like that. Oh yeah, the ferns. Yeah, yes.
So you've resisted to urge to throw some hostas in? So.
Oh yeah, we have hostas everywhere else.
Oh, okay, all right. This just has a different
right, and they are definitely
purpose.
A shade-loving plant. They and so they are good for this, but we have them in other places.
Well, we had a lot of fun at this tour today, seeing such beautiful things. We just thank you so much, Gail, for sharing your garden with us and your
garden.
and your history and your insights. We really appreciate that. Well, we thank you for being with us today. We are the Baraboo Buds. I'm Pat Taylor,
And I'm Kathy Calabrese.
and we hope to see you next time.